Florida State's offensive line is the key to beating Virginia.
You are Locked On Seminoles, your daily podcast on the Florida State Seminoles. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Back to Locked On Seminoles. I am your host, Brian Smith, longtime college football recruiting analyst. Thank you for making Locked On Seminoles a part of your day, each and every day here on the Locked On Podcast Network. Today's show is brought to you by Mazda. Like players, we sweat every detail because when you make every move count, pulling off the unexpected is only the beginning. Stay tuned later for highlights in this week's Moving the Game Forward, Mazda, Move and Be Moved. Speaking of being moved, Florida State is moving defensive players out of the way, and the offensive line is today's spotlight just a few hours before kickoff as the Noles head to Charlottesville, Virginia on a 7 o'clock kick on a Friday night to take on the Cavaliers. I expect Florida State's offensive line to play very well and to be the focal point, not only for this game, which is a litmus test, make no doubt about it. I just think they will pass it because if they can dominate an average at best Virginia defense, that gives them a chance to do well against a much better Miami defense than next week in Doak Campbell Stadium. So let's break this down in a couple of different categories. I'll get to the Pro Football Focus numbers after the break, but first, just the obvious. They had the worst team in the P4 for an offensive line last year. It's really not that negotiable. Like it's just disgusting how bad they were. Coaching change, culture change, leadership change. Everything is different. And some of the guys like Mo was a good player last year, but he can't help everybody on every play. It's across the board. You've got 5 guys that are a minimum of 4 years into college football, but that still didn't guarantee success because 4 new transfers, that could have went any direction imaginable. Hansen, Medley, Pettis, and like Pettibone has been just really good up front as the center, getting the line calls. Everything has worked out. Are they perfect? No. And that's why Virginia is the litmus test. And here's my point. Virginia has a couple of guys that could play for Florida State on their front 7. No question. They've got some pretty good players. They're linebackers. They've got one big defensive lineman, etc., that could play. But do they have the depth? No. Do they have the edge rushers? Not really. They've got good players that are P4, but there's nobody you're going to go, we have to scheme against that guy. We have to chip him. We have to double him, etc. Every single play. Conversely, and I don't wish this upon anything for Virginia or any team, but their center may or may not play, depending on what report you want to believe. If a backup center's got to go against Darrell Jackson Jr. from Florida State, good luck. Even a starting center is probably going to need help against Big Darrell, so you can see my point. This is the litmus test because it's not just that it's better comp than the last 2 weeks by a million miles. It's the mental capacity from the following point. This is where Florida State failed miserably last year. They see the helmet, they don't put in the time. In other words, a lower level opponent, somebody that doesn't have as much talent as you, how focused do you think FSU was for that Georgia Tech game last year? How about Boston College, etc.? They were a mentally weak team. Conversely, this year, after you beat Bama, you think, oh man, they're smelling themselves. They're feeling good. They're going to kind of play down to their competition against East Texas A&M. Nope. Same thing with Kent State. Nope. Here's the final one. You're 3-0. Everybody's liking what you're doing. You're in the top 10. Do you play down to the competition the week before an arch rival in the Miami Hurricanes? That's a checkbox. If you allow them to hang around and they've got a good quarterback, they got an NFL running back, if you allow them to hang around, you get in the mid-third quarter and it's a 7-point game, you could be in trouble. They have nothing to lose, and then the energy, the adrenaline, they'd have a chance. I expect Florida State's offensive line to stomp that out no later than with about 5 minutes to go in the first half. I expect 150 yards rushing by halftime. I do. And part of it will be broken plays with Tommy, etc. But that's part of it. They recruited well and then hit the transfer portal well as well. They've set it up. But for Tommy to get those dropbacks, they're going to run the ball. That's going to be the offensive line to get to those plays. Or maybe Virginia catches him in a blitz and Tommy makes a guy miss and gets 30. It counts on the rushing stats, but he gets 30. It will be the offensive line with Hansen, Pettis, Medley, all those different guys working together again and setting the standard, passing the litmus test that gives Florida State a chance to not only be good against Virginia, knock them out, as I've talked about all week. You need a first half that's really good. It starts with the offensive line, but it also sets the precedent for the Miami game. That'll be the best front they play all year. It's not really that hard to figure out. They're way better than anybody else in the league right now and how they played. And you got to take them on next week. You need to build up to it. Virginia's the perfect team. Solid defense, but again, do they have guys you have to double team and worry about to a point where every single play you're thinking about doubling a guy? Probably not. So with that, I think Florida State is going to pass the litmus test, and I'm going to show you the PFF numbers after the break to prove it. That is next here on Locked on Seminoles. Today's show is brought to you by Mazda. This episode is going to be kind of fun because we're talking about the offensive line being dominant again. And the way they've been playing, it's not just about playing the game, it's redefining it because FSU's offensive line has been great. There have been moments where they put points on the board, but they've also moved the momentum in the crowd and Doak Campbell, and it's been awesome. So as Florida State, like somebody like Pettis, who just buries people at right tackle, Mike has been dominant, and he has helped Florida State not just win games, he set a standard for how it's supposed to be in those short yardage situations. That's what Florida State football should be. And they're going forward, and no matter what, they even get it taken care of against teams that you wouldn't expect. It's just been awesome. So when you follow what moves you, the unexpected is only the beginning. And just like that, there's more to every highlight. There's more to a Mazda vehicle as well. Mazda, move and be moved. We are also brought to you by our friends over at Mazda. It's almost the weekend, and it's time to look back and crown this week's MVP, who delivered, powered by DoorDash, just like you can win every Saturday with DoorDash Streaks, saving more every time you order. I just talked about Micah Pettis and another guy that was just really awesome. We'll stick with the theme on the offensive line. Luke Pettibone, he doesn't get the credit that he deserves for FSU. Being a center, you hike the ball, you're playing against big guys inside that bench 400 pounds or more, and you're really having to battle. But his ability to make mental calls for what needs to happen for FSU, getting them in and out of the right checks, has been tremendous. They're one of the best rushing teams in the country, and their pass protection is actually graded out even higher than their run blocking. So just like Luke Pettibone has delivered for Florida State, DoorDash delivers for your Saturdays with DoorDash Streaks. Keep the streak alive all season. You can save up to $250, including $100 in DoorDash credits. Only with DoorDash. Terms apply. Promo code is good through November the 18th. And we are also brought to you by our friends over at 5 Hour Energy. 5 Hour Energy is a chance for you to get a caffeine upgrade with 5 Hour Energy shots, delivering tasty caffeine in 17 bold flavors. Each 2-ounce shot packs the caffeine of a premium 12-ounce cup of coffee and B vitamins, nutrients, no sugar, no calories. What you're going to love most is how portable it is. They're small bottles you can take with you to the gym, to the office, or out on the go to do whatever it is you need to do. 5 Hour Energy shots are there for you whenever you need a pick-me-up. Enough with the boring flavor as caffeine. It's time to give your caffeine a flavor upgrade with 5 Hour Energy shots. Get the favorite you love in bold, different flavors. Try something new in store and online at 5hourenergy.com or on Amazon today. Thank you once again for making Locked On Seminoles a part of your day, each and every day here on the Locked On Podcast Network. Now I want to talk about the numbers. Here's just what Pro Football Focus has, and I don't always agree with their blocking grades, but just take these with a grain of salt. And just know, compared to, I'm not even going to show you last year's numbers. I went back and looked for a second. I was like, oh my gosh, a few guys really good, and then it really drops off in general. It's amazing how much more consistent Florida State has been play to play. If you think back to 24, there'd be plays, 3-4 plays in a row. They'd run block okay. 4 yards, 5 yards, etc. And then 3 guys would miss a block or go to like there was a play, literally 3 guys went to block 1 player. They were always so confused. The coaching was so bad that it was terrible. This year, it's just consistent. It's just consistent. And that's why Florida State has been a whole nother animal to deal with. And I can't tell you how much more fun it is to cover, by the way. It's a lot easier. There are more things to say that make you happy. So let's talk about the numbers here. And this is just part of the pass blocking numbers. Richie Leonard, 84.9. That is excellent. Luke Pettigrew, 79.9. And remember, he's making the line calls. He's the guy that has to deal with all those big guys that grunting and snorting inside, making sure everybody's in the right place before they even snap it back to Tommy. That's important. Adrian Medley only grades at 55 on pass protection. I find that a little low. I'm surprised by that, but whatever. Gunnar Hansen, 70.6. Pettis, 83.7. That's really good. And here's the other news. Rizzi's at 82.1. Jonathan Daniels, who might be a starter next year, 70.2. This is a good sign. Lucas Simmons, 81.3. Otto, I mean, he was really bad last year, 75.6. They are a totally different team. Run blocking is not as good for whatever it's worth, but like they're in the 50s for the most part, in 60s. I'm not sure how much I agree with these, but they're still consistent. There's nobody you go, man, that guy's just terrible. Florida State's averaging over 200 yards a game rushing. I don't buy the 50s for anybody, but there's nobody you go, well, this guy's just so bad, it's causing them to keep points on the board or take points off the board. I think Florida State's offensive line overall has been really good, and I think it's actually getting a little better as time goes on. You got to remember now, Florida State is in a scenario where they've got a bunch of different guys that were put together again. That's not easy. They're going to gain steam even after the Miami game. That's only going to be game number 5. They're going to have 7 contests left to get better and better with chemistry and just understanding what it takes to play together. So that synergy will build. By the end of the season, if they're fortunate enough to be in the ACC title game, maybe it's against Miami, maybe it's Georgia Tech. It's going to be one of the two. If they make it, they should be in a position where they can run the ball against anybody. Pass protection's already way exceeded my expectations. And as a final point, just looking at things long-term, playing like this is going to make it a lot easier for Herb Hand, all the people working with the offensive line, and credit to all of them. Herb's done a great guy. He's a good guy, too. I covered Herb when he was at UCF. He's a really good man. I think that Florida State is going to end up winning some recruiting battles that they wouldn't have otherwise. Kids want to go somewhere and be developed. It's obvious that if you can take 4 new players, I know they're experienced, but in meshing together like this with one guy that's a holdover who was also a transfer in Richie Winter, you're doing pretty good. You're doing pretty good. Florida State is going to be in a scenario where they're going to get some guys that are going to change the trajectory of the program. And you really can't argue with that. Thank you once again for making Locked On Seminoles everything and every day right here that you need with Florida State football, recruiting, transfer portal news, injury updates, depth chart, predictions, everything else that's going around college football right here at Locked On Seminoles. So lock in by subscribing, hitting that notification bell. If you're on Apple, hit that automatic download. We will see you again soon here on Locked On Seminoles.